My name is Dr. Robert S. Brown. I'm a psychiatrist at Fort Lee, where I've been treating soldiers with PTSD for the last 7 years. Today's talk is intended to help you search for the positive aspects of post-traumatic stress disorder. I think it's going to be important to review the attachment therapy for PTSD tape that we made earlier, because this is a continuation of that general theme. And it's important to have the underlying theoretical basis to understand this presentation. I talked last time about psychological birth, that how the sense of the child's reality and body image and sense of time and sense of security and trust were all loved into existence by the mothering person. What I didn't talk about was the destruction of your identification, the creation of what I'm now calling the post-deployment complex combat soldier self. This is the new self that is trying to emerge from the damage that has been caused by post-traumatic stress disorder. Pay close attention, and if you have questions, write them down and ask me those questions when we meet again, either in a group or in individual therapy. I'm going to be referring to some of my notes as we talk today because I want to make sure that I cover all the topics. If love brought you into existence with a strong sense of reality and a sense of trust and a sense of who you are as a person, it is hate that has destroyed your sense of self. The hate of combat, the hate of the enemy towards you as a soldier has created an injury, perhaps even an amputation of the spirit, of your spirit, and of your sense of yourself as a person. The sense of yourself as a person developed over time. It involved not only being loved by your family, but being appreciated and treated with kindness and dignity and respect as you were socialized with education, friendships, organizations in your community, and you got through adolescence and joined the Army, and you became a soldier, and your strongest sense of identity has been yourself as a soldier. And that strong sense led you perhaps later to marriage and to a career in the military, and now it's been damaged. And in spite of the damage, there are still some very strong aspects of yourself as a person. And the purpose of this presentation is to help you discover some of the aspects that have been improved, perhaps, as a result of combat. Let me reflect on this with you as I think out loud. This week in a group therapy session, I was frankly surprised and pleased when I asked the soldiers if they could think of any one good thing that came to them as a result of having been traumatized in combat. Sometimes suffering can be advantageous. I don't recommend it, of course, but suffering and struggling can produce growth and modification of your sense of yourself. The Bible tells us that the finest gold is refined in the hottest furnaces, and combat is perhaps the hottest furnace in the world. So in some sense, you've had the dross burned out of your gold that's a part of yourself. So this is what the group came up with in terms of listing of positive aspects of PTSD. The soldiers said, number one, I feel much more alert. 2, I'm feeling more alive. 3, I have an increased sense of compassion. 4, I have an increased understanding of the suffering of others now. 5, I have an increased feeling of love. 6, an increased feeling of loyalty. 7, increased feeling of attachment to others that I care about. 8, increased feelings of inner perception and keener perception. 9, increased sense of trust once another is found to be trustworthy. 10, an increased value and importance of one's family. 11, sharpened sense of awareness that another person cares for me. And 12, an increased sense of the need to protect those I care for and those who care for me. Now, these are the feelings that can be called positive aspects of PTSD. But in many ways, they're trapped in your mind because you don't really have the skill yet to express these wonderful positive characteristics. Sometimes you confuse them with a sense of, or a feeling of weakness, because you've been taught as a soldier not to show your emotions. And that's a good characteristic of a good soldier, especially in combat, and especially of leaders, of non-commissioned officers and officers. But now that you're home, it's important to let yourself express these emotions in a protective and secure situation. I talked to some soldiers in an earlier group this week who were talking about how they were trying to deal with the death of a family member after they came back from combat. And some very sad things were said, suggesting to me that these soldiers have not yet learned to identify the positive aspects of PTSD and are keeping them hidden away from themselves and hidden from others. One soldier said he missed the group for 2 weeks because he went to the funeral of his grandfather. His grandfather had been a very close person to him, but when he went to the wake, he could not look at his grandfather's body in the casket. Other family members were crying and pulling him over to the casket, but he refused to look in there. The next day he went to the funeral, but he refused to look at his grandfather's body at the funeral. He said, I was hoping the whole thing would soon be over, and I was spending all of my time trying to cope. But he said when he got home, he took a shower and he cried in the shower. He was not, in some ways, courageous enough to share his tears yet with those who loved him and those he loved. Another soldier said that he came home from combat and his mother died the same day he got back home. He said it was a terrible thing because he had no knowledge that his mother was even ill. And when he complained to his family members, they said, well, you were in war and we didn't want to add to your burdens. But he said he got so mad he stopped speaking to his family for many months because the shock was just unbearable. And he could not grieve for his mother either, even though he was very close to her. He later spoke to his father, who told him that it was a good thing for him to start speaking to his family again and not to continue to isolate himself off like he had been doing. And he found that by listening to his father, he was able to feel different and feel better about the situation. Having compassion as a prisoner within your own mind is a painful thing, because you can sense injustice, you can sense sadness, you can sense unfairness, and yet you don't do anything about it in terms of expressing your feelings. And when they build up, they come out involuntarily and unconsciously in the form of a very short temper or being angry with others who are not even involved in the original situation that upsets you. The feeling for the suffering of others is very important, but it's important to do something about those feelings. I've had soldiers tell me that they only felt better when they finally started helping someone else. As a matter of fact, this is one of the main foundations of group therapy. Soldiers who've been in combat, they can help each other significantly even by simply telling what they went through and identifying how they try to deal with it. So there are some very positive aspects for PTSD. We've been thinking only about the negative aspects, and we've been emphasizing the negative aspects, and we've been treating the negative aspects. But I think if you will take the time, maybe take a sheet of paper and write down honestly even 1, 2, or 3 things that you think you can say that is a positive change in you as a result of fighting for this country in a combat situation. So as a brief review, let me say that you were born, you were given a name, you were loved into a form of psychological birth by a mothering person who gave you a sense of the value of your own body by loving your body and loving you, gave you a sense of yourself as a person, gave you a sense of security that taught you to be able to trust. And then you grew up, you went into the Army, you went into combat and you went through some unspeakable horror. And you've paid a high price for this. And the price is painful memories and images and all sorts of things that I don't have to talk to you about because you know them already so well. But you can turn this around by looking at one other aspect of the sense of oneself. And that is the last sense to develop is the sense of time. It's also the first sense to leave us under stress. For example, people who smoke marijuana tell me that time passes in a very different way. It's one of the earliest things to change under stressful situations. And so the sense of time has been distorted. And many of you are living as if you were still in the war. Your sense of time part of your brain has been distorted and disturbed. And you're not appreciating living in the present. And you're dreading the future. See if you can think more clearly about where you are at all times. That you can develop a real sense of security by identifying the location and the people that you're around on a daily basis. And get your sense of time back into the groove that it belongs. Your sense of yourself was significantly altered by the struggling you went through. But the struggling also brought you some very positive changes in your life. Some of them you may be shy about. I'm often told that soldiers tell me that when they're watching a movie that's touching, they start to cry. They feel very ashamed about it. They're surprised by their own tears. And I always tell them that this is not a breakdown, this is a breakthrough. The emotions of finding a way out. It's like having a river that's blocked up by a dam, and sometimes it's run over the dam, but it doesn't go forward. The stream, the current, is not moving as it normally should. So in review, these are the things that some soldiers think that have improved or are positive as a result of being in combat. A feeling of being fully alert, a feeling of being alive, a feeling of compassion they had not known before, a feeling of understanding the suffering of others, a stronger feeling of love, and feeling of loyalty, especially loyalty to each other. These bonds that occur in battle are some of the most precious forms of love that one can endure. We're told in the Bible, for an example, greater love hath no man than this, that he lay down his life for a friend. You have been willing in combat to lay down your life for a friend. And now for your friend, living or dead, we're asking you to not lay down your life, but to pick up your life, to start living fully. You have stronger feelings of attachment now. Be proud of them. Your perception is sharpened. Your ability to trust is more than ever before for those you found trustworthy. You value your family now, and you have an awareness of caring for other people and for protecting your family. Don't overprotect your family. Try to break the habit of checking the doors and windows all night long, and simply have a realistic feeling that you are safe and you know where to get help when you need it. These are some of the positive aspects of PTSD. See if you can add to the list and let me know what you find. Thank you.